Hey y'all, it's me, AB, your favorite podcast host, and I want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. And today I'm bringing you guys something a little bit different than how we usually do our podcasts. Today I have a very special guest, aka my mother, who is coming on for my very first interview with In My Head, and we will be discussing her newly released book, The Soul of the Matter. I hope you guys enjoy, and I can't wait to see what you think.
Thank you, Abigail. I am honored to be on your podcast, In My Head. And I'm excited because I've watched you kind of evolve into this, and this is really something that makes me really proud to see you sharing things that can be helpful for others that have been helpful for you as well. And then to share any new information or insights you get with your listening audience. So, again, thank you so much. Yes, this is your first live interview, and also my first book that I have written. And I finished the book at the end of December. So it's really an exciting time to share what I want to share with people through the book, but now to be able to share with them a little bit more about it. And yes, they can reach or find it on Amazon. It's in paperback, or you can purchase it through their online, their Kindle service. Exactly. All right. So it's out there and it's available. But thank you again for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you for joining me. The first question that I wanted to ask you, just to kind of give our viewers and listeners an idea of who Dr. Bowers is, who Carolyn is, and how she came to be. I wanted to ask you, how did your childhood and upbringing influence your career as well as the eventual creation of this book?
Sure, absolutely. So I've always been, I think you would describe me, and you might find this on the back cover of my book as well. But what you will find on there is when I look at myself as a young child, I would have been described as a sanguine. So I was somebody who would always talk to anyone, was not afraid of anyone. I was always outgoing. And as an example, my mom was looking for me one time. I think I may have been maybe high school, early high school, and I would go out, ride my bike in the neighborhood. I'm originally from Austin, Texas, so love my days in Austin. We live probably 15 minutes, no, not even 15 minutes. We probably were about maybe a 10-minute, 15-minute walk from the University of Texas. So we just love being in the city. But at that time, I was able to ride my bike. We'd go out in the neighborhood. And if my mom couldn't find me inside, she'd go outside and look for me. And a lot of times she'd find me sitting either down at the end of the sidewalk from the house, or when she didn't see me there, she'd get a little concerned and start looking to see where I was in the neighborhood. And she'd look up the street, and she found me, I think, up the street one day talking to one of the university presidents or faculty members rather. And so I talked to a lot of older people. I didn't necessarily, spend a lot of time with younger people or young people other than my cousins, but I would talk to anyone, and I seemed to be able to hold a conversation with people who were much older than I, and they seemed to enjoy having conversations with me. So I think that was a part of who I was, and that may have played into why I wasn't afraid to even embark on a book right now. But also, when I was in maybe, I think it was later high school, the first book I bought for myself was when one of my cousins, an older cousin, took me to the University of Texas where she was in school in Austin. And we went to the bookstore, the library that they had on campus. And I remember looking for a book. The book I ended up buying happened to be a book on reflexology. And for whatever reason, the pictures were gorgeous. I remember it. I can still see that book in my mind right now. And so I find it full circle that I'd end up coming back and writing a book on the soul of the matter. And for those that can't see this, the soul of the matter is SOLE. So if you look up the book, don't put SOUL because you will get a different book. But it is the soul of the matter because its focus and emphasis was on physical therapy for the feet, and how I came to understand that that is such a significant, important part of the recovery for a lot of clients that I work with. So anyway, I just find that like I said, I've always been outgoing. I've always been very open as a young girl growing up in Texas. And I believe that that has played into me continuing to be open to things that come to me in whatever format they are. And I think that has allowed me to become more of a holistic physical therapist. And that is where I believe that the book, which was given to me deep within my spirit, within my soul, to come forward with. I hope that answers your question, Abby.
Yeah, that does give us a good idea. So you brought up that you grew up in Austin, Texas. So for those of us that don't know, we're currently based in North Carolina, which does seem like a bit of a large jump from Texas. So are you able to kind of give us a timeline of your journey from Texas to where you are now?
Well, yeah, actually, I left when I was in Texas, right out of high school. We had friends at our church that we went to in Austin, Texas, and they happened to be the daughter of one of the presidents at the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore campus, okay, which is a HBCU. She told me that they were starting a physical therapy program and asked me if I would be interested in it. And I was like, okay, sure. And I think this comes into where I told you I'm a sanguine, so nothing really frightens me, right? I'm not fearful of anything or anyone. And so I was open to it, which meant I would have to leave the state of Texas and go to the state of Maryland, which I knew nothing about, but I was open to it. I said yes. Next thing I know, I was on a plane into Baltimore and then a crop duster into Princess Anne, Maryland, which was full of chicken farms, I think Purdue, soybean fields. I really didn't know where I was, but I was kind of a little shocked, taken back a little bit. But then once I got there and I was make friends and got on the campus, that is where I went to school and got my physical therapy degree. Then after receiving my physical therapy degree, then I ended up going into DC and working at National Rehab Hospital right out of school. And then from there, if we're talking academic wise and what I was able to do, I started first off, started a family and all of that, but we opened our own company as well. And we're doing physical therapy contracting work, which has kind of stuck with me to this day because I work also as a travel therapist and also privately with private clients. But then I had the opportunity to go back and get my doctorate at the University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas. So that's when I went back, did that through San Antonio, and just moved forward with my DPT. And so I have continued to be a innovator in what I do, and I've continued to travel with therapy. And really, that's the quick story of the full journey of how I got from Austin to Maryland. And now we transitioned to North Carolina in 2006. I always tell people when they ask me about that, I say, well, I think I'm just making my way back down to Texas very slowly.
So how would you, taking in your entire experience as a physical therapy professional, describe yourself, describe, how you approach the field, the practice, and what, you've gleaned from it in your time?
Okay, so I'll give you the shortened version of it. And the shortened version of it for me today, and I would call it my evolution in the field of physical therapy. Neurology and neurological has always been my love inwardly, okay? And I was very good at it when I was in school. I was, I think, top of my class as far as that was concerned. The professor loved me. I loved the subject. I loved studying the nerves. So it didn't surprise me when I ended up evolving in the way that I have. So I really do use the nervous system a lot in facilitating recovery and rehabilitation for my patients. And it doesn't matter what part of it. It doesn't matter whether it is part of the limbic system, whether I'm activating the vagal nerve, or anything to incorporate what we would call, these are jargon words, the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. So whether I am trying to take you out of fight or flight, which would be the sympathetic system, and put you into the parasympathetic, which would be more rest and digest, kind of concept, because what I've come to understand is it is very difficult to help someone who is in fight or flight. So you do have an obligation as a physical therapist to help bring them into what we would think of as rest and digest, so that then you are able to fully work with that patient, so that that patient is not on guard every time they move or every time, you know, they feel a pull or a tug. It can be very resistant for that patient, and it makes it very difficult for the therapist at that point, because they can't progress the patient because the patient is constantly on guard. So one of the things that I wanted to really just put out there, that my evolution is, I am also a master Reiki. I am also trained in clinical Pilates. I am also studying currently in spinal flow. And for any of those that know what those are, but if not, I'll expand a little bit. They're basically, you are working with the nervous system. Basically, the difference in it is that as a Reiki master, as a physical therapist, I'm able to put my hands on people because I have a license to be able to do that. Most people who do Reiki will hover over, but we as physical therapists, we can put our hands on people, so we can actually use our physical touch as a part of that contact when we're working with them to help a person to balance. And if we can bring them into balance, we're going to take them out of fight or flight, right? And when they're out of fight or flight, they are open to you, and they will absolutely listen to you, and they'll follow your guides and they'll follow your cues, which will really benefit them in the long run with that. So I'm not sure what if there's anything else I need to add to that, but just understand that I do what I call subtle energetic work as well within my traditional practice of rehab. And it has blown my mind and blown me away and the patient away to see the results and how quickly they get. And and that might be one of the places, if you want, when we segue in to the book, we'll talk more about that.
When you're talking about balancing your patient's, you know, nervous system and getting them out of that fight or flight mode, do you notice if there's maybe like a correlation between patients that you are taking out of the flight or flight mode, like who is hardest to remove from that space, or maybe takes longer to help them to be able to get into that state of balance?
Yeah. I work with patients from, as we would say, people who are in the hospital system, who have had a current injury of some sort and they've just been brought in. I work with people who have gone in for surgery, whether it was voluntary surgery for back surgery, or whether it's something happened from a fall from a set of a ladder or something, just a ground level fall of some sort, or either from a height trauma. I work with homeless as well, who have come into the hospital for varied reasons, whether they were in a pedestrian accident of some sort or fell and hit their head again, or I work with people from chronic conditions, whether they're people who've had previous strokes or previous who are dealing with chronic pain syndromes in their backs or all over, just how would we say it, fibromyalgia. With that, or people who are not just chronic pain patients, but they're people who have diagnoses, but no one can find a reason for it. They're just given a bucket diagnosis, okay? And it's not a specific diagnosis, a very general, and they're saying, I think you're fibromyalgia, maybe one. I think you just, and what does that mean?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what does that mean?
So,
like for maybe like the
muscle fiber pain of some sort, right?
That's what fibromyalgia.
But yeah, if you break it down, okay, in the simplest form.
Yeah.
And so that's very generic. That's not a specific.
So you're basically just saying in medical terms, there's stress in your body that's causing these symptoms, basically.
Right.
If you're talking about like a muscular.
Well, it would be like someone saying, well, you're having respiratory distress. Why? We don't know why. We can't find anything. Okay. Yeah. That kind of thing, right? So anyway, I've worked with people of all that. Those are the most difficult, right? Because nobody knows what's going on, and sometimes they're the most difficult, but sometimes they can be the easiest, because right now they're on guard because they know something's wrong. but they don't know what's wrong. And they say, oh, I've been to doctors multiple times. As a matter of fact, I had a client that I work with in the acute care hospital for something totally different from what happened with her when we finished. So she was working with me to mobilize. After she was walking with me, before I started with her, I also am certified in biofield tuning, which is where you use tuning forks, different weighted tuning forks or whatever, by creating binaural beats, etc., to help them to get into the parasympathetic. So I tell you, if it is available and it works, and I've done it and I've tried it and I see that it works, it's on. We're going to use it. And in that situation, those things will be considered biofield modalities. Okay, so for any therapists out there, that's your go word, that's your code word for documentation. Okay. And so I walked with her. She came back. She sat down, and I said she couldn't move before. Other therapists couldn't get her. She was just off balance, etc. I was able to get her to move. We walked. She came back. She sat back down, and she looked at me, and she said, "You know what?" And I said, "No, what?" She said, "I had a ringing in my ear that has gone after I did her biofield tuning," and we walked and mobilized. She was waiting as she was walking. I didn't realize this, but she was listening for it and waiting to see if it would come back before she said something. And she said, I've had that for the last, forever, like last 3 years. And I've gone to multiple doctors, 2 to 3 of them. And none of them said, she said that they told her, we can't figure out what it is. You're just going to have to live with it. And I did that one time with her using different her frequencies in the beats, right? And the tuning forks, and literally it was gone. So I said, great, glad I could help you to do that, right? And help that to happen. So then she got discharged the next day, because I remember being at the hospital that next day and wanting to go check on her and see if it had held, right? Well, she had discharged, gone to rehab. So something happened at rehab medically that required her to come back to the hospital. So she came back to the hospital. I was going down the hall and I heard someone call my name. And I backed up, looked in, it was the same woman. And I said, hey, how are you? What are you doing back? And she kind of explained medically why she had come back. She said, I was hoping I would see you. I just want to let you know the ringing has never come back. And she was over there for at least 2 to 3 days before she came back. She said it has not come back. All right. So that same concept, I have had that similar thing happen as well after working with the feet of someone. So, so game on. If it's available and I see that it works and I understand how it works and I know it will benefit you, I have people working with me who would not work with anyone else. And in the hospitals where people would say, hey, Carolyn, we can't get this guy to do anything. Then they would come say, do you mind going in and trying to help him or see what you can do with him? And surely I am able to get them to work with me. And I'm going to tell you the best way that you can get them to work with you from a professional perspective is to touch their feet.
Okay. And so, well, I mean, that's pretty crazy hearing that as far as like ringing in the ears. Cause I mean, I have, coworkers and colleagues that, deal with certain things that I guess they've like termed it as tinnitus and like ringing in the ears. That's,
Yes.
common, or at least if not consistent, happening on a regular interval. So even just hearing that specific story, because I mean, I've heard a lot of your work stories and a lot of your testimonials just at home and within our own private conversations. So even just hearing that, it's like, oh wow, just from one session that you could be able to remove something that, even if it wasn't like a disability for a person, that it was still affecting or hindering their quality of life, and you were able to improve that for somebody. So going off of the feet and kind of getting into that, what was your inspiration behind the soul of the matter? Now that we see kind of your overall education into physical therapy and what you like to bring in and practice and utilize, how did all of that come into the inspiration for this book?
Well, I think the inspiration for the book in particular, originally when I was going to write this book was going to be called Renergy, which happens to be, that's the name of my podcast. So I had set up my podcast to talk about that, and I have talked about that and with it and everything. So, and I'm still working on that. I had to take a pause on it while I finished the book. But now that the book is finished, I'll be back in and uploading in there, and I'm excited about the things that I'm going to be able to share on that with it. So, Renergy is still something that I do, okay? And I call it Renergy because I see it as blending of subtle energetic work and rehab. And so I just blended the two. It's not rocket science, but that's what spoke to me. And that was going to be the name of the book originally. Then, as I began to work more and began to study reflexology and understanding physical therapy and understanding how touching the feet of my patients as a physical therapist was making a huge difference. Then I said, well, let me see something here. So then I began to use it more often of working with the feet. Okay. And that is from, if I had tuning forks and they were not a contraindication for using a tuning fork on the patient's feet, because sometimes you can have contraindications where if they're, osteoporotic or something, rather than being on the bone that could facilitate, potential weakening bones, crack, having a light fracture or something. We just, we try to stay away from that as much as possible. So we would do something a little different with them and not use the tuning forks on there, but using your hands. So physical therapists, again, are licensed to use their hands. We're so perfect for this. Reflexologists, I love it because I studied reflexology, okay? And when I studied reflexology, I even traveled to Texas to work with a woman one-on-one, okay, for like the practical part of the training that I was doing. And it was wonderful because I could go home. So I'm always trying to find reasons to go back to home. And that way I get to see my parents and my family. So I began to see the difference it was making, whether you were acute care, chronic, whether you were the wealthiest of the wealthy, generational wealth people, or whether you were living on the streets and had no shelter that you knew of or a place to lay your head. And I began to see the difference, okay, that it had in there. And there are specific stories on that one, in particular with the one who was homeless. And, in the hospital settings, if you're homeless and they got you stable, you're not going to stay long. You're gone, okay? It goes for anyone, but in particular in that environment, right? Because they're pretty much eating the cost on that. So they had someone they didn't want to admit. They had him down in the transitions of the ED, and they needed him to go. They knew he was ready to go stable medically, but he said he couldn't walk. He could not walk. So it turned out they had me come back down into that area. I saw him. I asked him if I could take a look at his feet. That was first, to see what was going, see if something else was going on. And he was a little hesitant, right? And I understand the feet are very, how do we say, what is the word I'm thinking of, Abby? People are very protective of their feet. They are very intimidated. And a lot of people don't want you to see their feet because they're like, oh God, you can't look at those. Because sometimes they have not been able to get down there, do anything with them. And if you can imagine someone homeless, the feet are probably not the priority for them, right? And everything. But I told him, if you could let me take a look at your feet, hopefully I could help them and see if there's anything that needed to be done. And he did. So eventually I work with his feet, and after that, I always have them get up on their feet to make sure because they're new feet. When I finish working with them, they're new. They're not the same. So he did. He was able to walk, go to the bathroom, get up, go, boom, boom. When I finished working with him and I left, I told them at the staff, I said, hey, he's good for discharge whenever you're ready. He's able to mobilize and da. So I left. And he would work with nurses one way, work with me another way. But when I left and I came back through in that department, he had discharged because he was up mobilizing, doing everything, and he felt good about leaving. So it wasn't that he wasn't medically stable. He needed some support. And when you work with the support, when you support people through working with their feet, they are so grateful, even if they're a little apprehensive in the beginning. When you finish working with them, I think it comes to the concept that if you will touch my feet, I can trust you. And you will be, if you will help me through that, I can trust you. And so that literally is what I did. So when I went to Texas, I happened to see my dad, and I saw my dad on the security cameras. And I watched him with his hands on his back, hardly able to walk without supporting himself by putting his hands on his back, because his feet were hurting so badly. My dad has, different diagnoses like neuropathies, etc., that will affect your walking. But he had been declining, and it was just terrible. He hated the way he walked. So I asked him if he would let me work with his feet, and he did. And so that was a Friday night. By Sunday morning, that was only one time I worked with his feet, one time. And that was Friday evening. By Saturday, he continued, well, immediately following doing his feet, he moved better. He didn't have his hands on his feet. He kind of walked through the house, and I watched him because I knew what I had done will continue to improve, because the feet are at the bottom of the feet. There's no body underneath, no part of the body underneath the feet. That's it. So anything I do in the feet is going to affect what is above it. Mm-hmm. So he then on Sunday morning dressed and went to church with the family. I happened to watch him. He was all over the church, walking. He looked so good. He had his suit on. I mean, he was sharp, and he was talking to everybody, and hands in one hand, talking and motioning, and never once getting up and down all the different opportunities they have for them to stand and sit and go forward when when they're inviting people to come to the church, all of this stuff. So I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm just smiling. And afterwards, he was standing outside the church talking to one of the young men, just so engaged. And I took a picture of him. And then afterwards, I showed him the picture. And he looked at it. He said, "Who is that?" I said, "That's you, Dad." He said, "Oh my goodness, I look good." And I said, "You did. You really did." And so he was so grateful. So needless to say that if he knows I'm coming, he's asking, "Are you going to do my feet?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Right. So then after I did that, I realized, oh my goodness. Wow, that was fast. And I saw how it continued to evolve even after I had finished what I was doing. It didn't stop. Right. It continued to improve. And he's not the only one. So I've seen that in everyone that I work with. They come back to me and say things like, "Oh, when you worked on my foot," he said, "Oh, that edema improved so much." Sometimes I hear them say, when I'm working on them immediately, they go, "Oh my God, I can feel the fluid moving." Or, "Oh my goodness, I felt that tension leave." Or a woman would come in her daughter did actually found me when I was in a clinic, an outpatient clinic. And she said, "I wanted to let you know that my feet stopped hurting. That day when I told you and you worked on them, they have not hurt since then." So that's when I got excited, and I knew the book had to be finished. So that's when I started, and I poured all of my attention into that. Why I paused the podcast, paused a lot of stuff to get it done while still working and traveling and things of that nature. And that's where the soul of the matter came from. That's when I believed that poured within my soul was to pour out into this book, The Soul of the Matter. And that's why I think it's a missing step in physical therapy. I think we work with a lot of things, and I've had therapists that I've worked with before that when I said, "Hey, if you can't get that patient to work with you or you're not sure, look at their feet, see what's going on there. If you will work with their feet, they will change how they work with you, and they will work with you." And I had so many therapists at the time go, "Ooh, no." They just could not see themselves touching.
I mean, I can't blame them, even though they are physical therapists.
I can't.
I understand.
I understand too, but I don't understand when we have access to gloves. We have access to wash our hands afterwards. We have towels that can be warmed and wet to wipe feet, to make sure that they, are as fresh as possible, especially people in the acute care settings, in the subacute settings, which are hospitals, nursing homes for those that know it as that. In outpatient clinics as well. Everybody that comes in the outpatient clinic don't have feet that look or smell as good. So you can still wipe them, right? Even though they're coming straight from home. Right. So you can still help your patient. You can help your client. And there are ways to set them up to make them comfortable and all of that. So there's so much that I'm looking forward to being able to teach others how to implement this. I hope that therapists that may get wind of this or will be putting it out to them, that they will want to know how to approach and to give a patient back their vitality, to help them with neuropathic pain or neuropathies in the feet, to support them. Because when you support someone and you touch their feet, you're touching their souls. And that's usually my segue out when I leave, is I say, "Thank you for letting me touch your soul." And they all laugh. I've never had one not laugh. I've had some of my patients said, I know you're touching my feet, but you're doing so much more. And that's when I knew that this was a gift from above to show me how to do it. And the unique thing that I do is I use a template on my feet. And it is the Kabbalah, which is a form of sacred geometry. And I have used that. And in that, I have been given the direction of how to use that to support the feet a lot faster and to feel the resistance a lot faster, and then to open up their systems and increase circulation, increase sensory awareness, reduce myofascial restrictions. All of these done within the parameters of contraindications that we need to be aware of. But you can use this with just about any patient that you work with. Absolutely. Sometimes you can do one foot at a time if you don't have time to do two. I always start with the right foot to open up the system going back into the heart, and then I will finish with the left. So, and if I have to do it, I'll do the right one, and then if they have to see me a different day, I'll do the left one. So there's so many different approaches that you can take, but this is one of the things that I'm going to be creating, is to create the course, as well as creating a YouTube that I can put it out there for people to be able to support them and to help them, from professionals to family members, teach therapists. Here we are moving into what we would call Black History Month, right? What a great opportunity to teach us how to support one another. And neuropathies are very real within the different populations of the Black community, with diabetic diagnoses as well, having different neuropathies, and different cancer patients also suffering from neuropathies from their chemotherapy, etc. So this is something that you could really help and support people in. And like I said, I'm looking forward to being able to teach others how to do what I'm doing and see the same results and get really excited about it, because you're going to see the change in the vitality within your patient.
Okay. Do you have any other further aspirations for your book and what your book is discussing, that we can either look forward to in the near future, or just for yourself that you would like to see being done within the next couple of years?
Okay. My goal and my desire is to take it into to the physical therapy schools, because one of the reasons why I did the book, and this is what was kind of given to me, was I said, hey, everybody's coming to me. I'm one person. I can't see everyone in the hospital. I can't see everyone at the same time. So I asked, how am I supposed to, and I'm asking this of my own divine, creator, my own, within. How am I supposed to be able to do all of this? And it was said to me that you have to teach it. And that's where the book came from. And the goal is to put it out there so that therapists that move forward will be a natural connection, and they'll be using it. So as the new people come in and the older population of therapists goes out, that they will then see it as a natural part of therapy and why they're doing it. And it's going to help so many of the young physical therapists when they go in and they have patients, they don't know what to do, and they're trying to learn and do all the traditional things they told you to do, but they can't get past the patient wanting to work with them. I got your answer.
I like that a lot. And then I guess actually leading off of that, I see that you've kind of taken your own pioneering approach to figure out the best way to practice physical therapy as far as your own experience and the experience of your patients. So for the young professionals, young physical therapy professionals especially, but anybody within kind of like the health field or dealing with helping another person, do you have any words of encouragement, or even just wise words from the own process of you writing your book and practicing, what you're preaching? Do you have any advice or encouragement for any young professionals out there that maybe, they might not be doing something with the sole of the feet, but they may have an idea that they feel the same about as you do with your own book? How would you encourage them to develop and to continue to learn and to maybe even apply those with patients in the appropriate way?
Okay, so you pretty much said it, Eb. So I would tell them, this is the most important thing I could tell them. Continue to create. Even as you hear from me and you learn from me, I am putting this out here not to put you in a box, but I am giving you a tool. And from that tool, to continue to expand on it, continue to create what is given to you. This was given to me. So now I am doing what I am being told to do with it. You will do what you're supposed to do with it. But it's important for you to create, not to compete. Competition will cause resistance and it will cause blocks in what you're trying to do. You don't have to compete with anyone. As long as you are creating, whatever is out there for you is out there for you. There's no need for you to compete with anyone else. Just create. Be innovative. Do not allow anyone to say to you that that's not, you don't really think that's a good idea. And if they're saying that to you, then that's not someone you need to be telling what you're doing and what you're creating. So you hold on to it close to your heart, and you continue to create. It has taken me time. Over the last 3 years, I have been creating what I am doing. So you go to your jobs and you do your jobs. You go in there, you work, you continue to do it. But as you're working, you must then be envisioning you doing what it is you desire to do and what you desire to create. Don't ever lose sight of that, but continue to do the work that you are doing. That is what is supporting you to allow you to dream and allow you to see it and to feel it. And if you can see it and feel it, it's yours.
That's a word right there. I think that can apply to a lot of different situations, like personally, whether or not you're creating something in the sense of dealing with your profession, or if you just want to be somewhere different than where you are right now. So yeah, I think that's a really powerful word.
Well, thank you so much, Abigail, for having me here. I'm so proud of you, and I'm just so proud, and I'm so honored that you saw me worthy to bring onto your show as your first live interview with you. I am so honored. You have no idea. I say namaste to you and keep creating. You are doing a fantastic job. Much love.
Thanks, Mom. Well, that is, like she said, the very first in my head interview for my podcast. So I hope everyone enjoyed this interview or was able to take either some inspiration or some feedback as well. And then you can also remember to check out Dr. Bowers' newest release on Amazon for $25 called The Soul of the Matter, spelled SOLE. The Soul of the Matter, now available on Amazon, and then she will be returning to your feeds sometime very soon, sharing more of her wisdom and more of her takeaways and more of her creative journey with you guys.
Thank you.